you all, please let me know so that I can share the recordings with you. There was some.
Hi,
Yeah,
hi
please go
Jayanti.
ahead. Yeah,
I
hi.
didn't receive yesterday's that video recording.
Can you drop me a mail, please? Because
Okay.
some of your names I couldn't track it actually.
Okay.
Your name is?
Karthik Chakkarwar.
You didn't receive it. I had you in the mail list. Maybe I missed it. Just drop me a mail. Okay.
Okay.
You have
Okay.
my mail ID, right? You have my
Uh,
mail.
yes, I think.
Yeah. So you must have received the calendar invite also from my mail ID.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So just drop me a mail. Though I remember I have included you because I marked you as present in my tracker sheet and all, but maybe I missed copying your email ID. Okay. So just drop me a mail. Additionally, if anybody else is there, please drop me a mail informing that you have not received the recording of the session. So let's get started with today's session. And today we will start off first with intent scoping and preconditions. Then we will look into how to enable multiple languages for the bot, how to define variables and use those variables in task configurations. And once we complete all of these, we will look into the bot kit, how to install the bot kit in the server. And I'll show you all a simple example of how to use the bot kit. And finally, we will end the session with an overview of the admin platform. Okay. So starting off with the first topic, that is intent scoping. Before going into that, any questions about anything that we have discussed yesterday? Okay, one thing that I wanted to show you all, I was missing that, is that yesterday we were not able to see the sentiment management. I guess there was some problem with the platform end because I have not made any changes to the configuration. I was just trying it today. And you can see the sentiment event has been identified, okay? And the raise issue task has been initiated as a result of the sentiment that got identified. So I had initiated this task if the NLP identifies both of these sentiments at a level of 1 to 3. Okay, so the moment the NLP engine identifies, scores these sentiments at the scale of 1 to 3, the task to be initiated is the raise issues task. So no changes in the configuration, but I guess yesterday something was wrong on the platform end. That is why it was not identifying it. But this is a simple configuration on a platform, that is, you just get to know that the phrases that are expected from the user, which sentiment is internally scored, and then you can create an event to track those sentiments. Remember, the scale is 1 to 3 if the sentiment is found. The scale is -1 to -3 if the sentiment is not found in the utterance of the user. And depending on the scale, you can either trigger a task or you can execute a JavaScript. Okay, a very simple configuration. Okay, any other questions on anything that we discussed in yesterday's training session? Okay. So today we will start off with intent scoping, and the purpose of intent scoping, while a dialog task is in execution, we have seen, like, let's see the make payment task. Now this task requires the user to input two entities. One is the account ID and one is the amount to be paid, or the payment amount. Now, let's say this task is initiated and the user provides the account ID. And when the bot is prompting the user for the payment amount, the user says, I have provided an incorrect account ID. Okay. Or the user says, I want to change the account number. Or the user says, can I use another account number? Okay, so when the bot is expecting an input from the user expresses his intent to amend an entity value. Okay, so the user is providing utterances while the task is in execution. The user is providing utterances where he is expressing his intent to amend an entity value. He has already entered some value for that entity, and down the line in the conversation, somewhere he says that he wants to change an entity value. Now, we know from our basic training session that we have allowed entity amendment, but through a guided conversation. So we had done that in the check balance task. If you all remember in the basic training session, in the check balance task, when the API call does not return the row, we are displaying an error message to the user and then asking the user, would you like to change the account number? And if the user says yes, we first remove the instance of this entity, because on our platform, on our bot builder, if an entity is already holding a value, the bot will not allow the user to re-enter that entity value. So the first thing we need to do is to remove the instance of that entity and then connect back to that entity node so that a new instance is created and the conversation continues once again. But this is a guided flow where the bot is prompting the user, like, do you want to change your account number? And then allowing the user to do it, depending on his response. But what I'm talking about right now is something different, where the user expresses his intent that I need to change the account number, or I have provided an incorrect account number. So the bot did not ask the user for anything, but the user expressed his intent to amend an entity value. Now, how do you do this? This can be done by intent scoping. That means we are going to define a sub intent through which we will allow the user to amend an entity value, but that intent will be applicable only within a particular group of nodes. So when those nodes are in the context, then only the user can express his intent to amend one of the entity values. One second. I would request all of you all to be on mute so that others are not disturbed. So let us see how we can proceed with this. So the first thing that I will do here is I'll show an example with the make payment task. Okay, so the first thing before you go in for creating sub intents like this, through which the user can express his intent to amend an entity value. So what you need to do is to create a group of nodes within which these intents will come into play. Okay, so these intents are available as long as that group is in the context. So how do you create a group? You just drag and drop, drag your mouse and create a group. Okay, so I create a group of these two entity nodes. Okay, so you can see a group has been created. You can provide a name to this group. So let's say I put it as payment details. Okay. Okay, and once we provide the name of the group, there's a settings button over here. Click on this settings button. Now, this allows you to define intents which will be applicable only within this group of nodes. Okay, so here I add an intent. Okay, you can create a new intent. Okay, so just click on create intent and you provide a name to your intent. Just like intent means a task. Actually, this is also a task. Okay, so user is expressing his desire to change his account ID. So that means it is a task for the bot. Okay, so you are defining a task or defining an intent, but this is not a primary intent because it cannot be initiated directly from the, from the conversation window. Okay, it can be only initiated when this group of nodes is in the context. Okay, so it is not a primary intent, but it is a sub intent which comes into context only when a group of nodes is in the context. Okay, so let's say I name it as change account number. Okay, and you can add a description over here and we click on save. So this creates the intent. Okay, so now we will go into the configuration of this task, the sub intent. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to add utterances, or you can define patterns which will qualify this intent. Of course, whenever you create a task, you need to train the NLP engine with utterances or with patterns so that the NLP engine can qualify that task. Same thing over here. Though this is a sub intent, but you need to train the NLP engine to qualify this intent when utterances come from the user. Okay, so I'm just adding machine learning utterances over here. You can also define patterns. Okay, so the user can say something like, I need to change the account number. Okay, or the user can say, I have used an incorrect account number. Okay, so or the user can say, can I use a new account number? Okay, or can I replace my account number, something like this. Okay, so different utterances which will tell the bot that the user wants to change the account number that he has already provided. Okay, so keep on adding as many utterances as you want. You can also define patterns if you want. Okay, and once you do it, click on the train button to train the ML engine. These utterances that we are adding is actually for the ML engine. So you need to click train the ML engine with these utterances. Now, once the training is done, what should be the next step? The next step is we know that if an entity is holding a value, the bot will not allow the user to re-enter that entity value. So here the user has already provided the account number. So in that case, even if that group of nodes is in the context and the user says that I have provided an incorrect account number, the bot will not allow the user to re-enter the account number. Though the sub-intent will be identified correctly, but you will see the bot will not allow the user to re-enter the account number. So the next thing that we need to do here is to remove the content of that particular entity, and then we will continue with the conversation. Now here I'm going to show you something which is a bug right now in 9.0, so it may not work. Okay, but still I want to show it to you all because this bug is already being addressed. So pretty soon this will be resolved with the new patch that is coming up, and then you can configure this kind of sub-intents also. Okay, so the next thing that we will do here is I'll come to set context variables. Here we are going to say context dot entities dot the name of the entity, and we are going to assign the null value to it because we want to remove the existing content of that entity. Now, this is something that is not working with 9.0. Okay, this is already a reported bug, and our platform is working. Platform team is working on this. I'll show you all how the sub-intent is getting identified, but it will not allow me to change the account ID. But soon this will be resolved, and we can, configure this particular use case. Okay, now once we have changed the account ID to null, let us present a message to the user, because how will the user know that he can go ahead and change the account number? So we need to present, it is always that the bot keeps the user updated about the flow that is taking place. So here we present a message to the user that, okay, let's change the account number. Okay, so this is a message that will be presented to the user. And finally, we come to the transition flow where we jump back to the entity account ID. So let's go through the configuration once again. I have first created a group of nodes within which these intents will come into play. That is why these are known as sub-intents and not primary intents like the ones we have already created. Sub-intents can be initiated only when the group of nodes within which that intent has been defined, those nodes are in the context. Okay. put a name to the intent, okay, and then add utterances which will lead to the qualification of these intents, okay. Now, after you add the utterances, the next is, remember, unless and until the entity value is changed to null, the bot will not allow the user to re-enter the entity value. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm coming to set context variables, where I'm providing the name of the entity and changing the value of that entity to null. Okay, now once we do it, if there are multiple entities, you can provide multiple entity names over here and change the value to null. Then we are presenting a message to the user, telling the user that, okay, we can change the entity value now. So any message, you can add multiple messages over here. One of the messages will be picked up and displayed to the user. And finally, we jump back, or we transition back to that entity. So we go back to the account ID entity. So this completes the configuration of this particular task. Let me see if the training is complete. Okay. And once we have done this, it takes a little time for the training to complete, but let's hope that it is done. Yes. Yeah.
Can you restate the use case for this? I'm not following.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. You will see it working. Okay. Now let's talk to the bot. Okay. So I'm in the make payment task. Okay. And here, let's say initially I provide an account number. And then when the bot is prompting the user for the amount to transfer, here the user says, I have used an incorrect account number. This is a very, valid situation where if a bot is prompting for some entity values while a task is in execution, somewhere the user can say, I want to change an entity value. Okay, he has already provided, input for that entity when the bot had prompted, but later on he realizes while that conversation is in flow that he wants to change one of the values that he has provided. This is known as entity amendment. Okay, the user has already provided the entity value, but he is expressing an intent to amend an existing entity value. Okay, now since by default this will not be accepted, because here the bot is expecting the input as a number, the user provides an utterance which does not match with a number, so the bot will display the error prompt and re-prompt the user for the amount to transfer. But since we have defined a sub intent, okay, which allows the user to amend the entity value, you will see this particular utterance where the user says, I have used an incorrect account number. Okay, it should qualify the sub intent that we have defined. Okay, so you can see the sub intent has been identified over here. So executing sub intent change account number. This is the sub intent name. Okay, and it's not re-prompting the user for the account number. Like I said, it's a bug with 9.2 that the null assignment is not working right now for the entities, but our platform team is trying to resolve the issue, and it will get resolved soon. And then you will see after presenting this message to the user that, okay, let's change the account number, the bot will re-prompt the user for the account number. Okay, so this allows the user that while a conversation is on, if he feels that he needs to change some value that he has already provided, he can express his intent to do that. And we have to define sub intents within our dialog task to accept those requests of the user and allow the user to amend the entity value. Okay, is it clear to you the purpose why we are doing the sub intent? Okay, I'm going to add one more sub intents, a few more sub intents over here. Okay, so I'm adding another one. This one did not work, like I said, because the null value is not working. Yeah, any questions?
So if we would not have put that sub-intent with, because you, in the sub-intent, you put some utterances in there, like, like I want to change
Yeah.
my, so when it sees that, like if I wouldn't have put that, it would just jump over it.
It will not recognize it. If you go to any other task, okay, let me go to some other task. Let me show it to you. Unless and until we provide a sub intent. Okay, so I have another task today called apply card. Okay, let me show you with that. So this does not have any sub intent or anything like that. Okay, so I select the card type here. Okay, and here I say I have selected. Okay. Okay, so you can see over here something else is happening too. Okay, you can see this has raised another task due to some, if you see here, the new task has been initiated. That we have to see why it is initiating this new task. But you can see that it does not recognize this as an utterance that should allow the user to change the type of card he has selected. Okay, so by default, it will never do that because this is something, and moreover, why it is a sub intent? Because when the user is selecting the card type and while in the conversation, if he says he wants to change the card type, that is an utterance which makes sense when only the apply card task is in the context. Okay, that utterance does not make sense when this task is not in the context. So only when the primary task is in the context, these kind of sub-intents will come into the context. Okay, this type of sub-intents will be available. And one of the major features why we go in for sub-intents is to allow entity amendment. Because without that, without a sub-intent, if the user says that I want to change the value that I have provided, the bot does not understand that. Okay, the bot does not, NLP does not have the capability. Neither can it flow back directly, jump back directly and change the entity value. That is not possible. So you have to define a sub-intent to handle these kind of entity amendments, which the user might want to do when he's in a particular conversation. Okay, is it clear to you?
Yes, thank you.
So I come back to this task. I'm going to define another sub-intent, okay, and show you all. Let's say the user says, last time was the user just said that I want to change the account number, okay. But if the user says, update my account number to followed by another account number, or the user says use account number followed by another account number. So he had provided an incorrect account number, and somewhere down in the conversation, he says that change an entity value, but he provides the new value within the utterance itself. Okay, so how can we configure that kind of sub-intent where the bot can extract the new entity value from the utterance after the sub-intent has been qualified and assign that new value into the entity for which the amendment should be initiated. Okay, so let's say I name this intent as something like this. Okay, and here I'm going to add a few utterances, machine learning utterances. Okay, and I'm going to say use account number, and let's say we provide an account number. Okay, you can provide any dummy value, a value that matches with the expected type of that particular entity. Okay, so any value over here, but what you need to do is once you add this particular utterance, make sure you highlight this and you tag it with the respective entity. This is very important when you are doing this kind of a training, where you are training the NLP engine that once the sub intent has been identified, the NLP should pick up the entity value which is there in the utterance of the user and assign it into the entity for which the amendment has been initiated. So for that, make sure that when you are adding utterances, you are adding utterances which contain the entity value. Okay, so update account number 2, let's say anything. Okay, so I can put over here 6. Okay, because account ID is a number in my case, so I'm just adding numbers over here, but I'm making sure that I'm tagging it with the account ID entity. Okay, this is, if you all remember, this is the NER tagging, and this we always suggest that if your ML utterance has possible entity values, make sure that you tag it with the respective entity. Okay, but for this kind of a subintent, you have to do this. Now, once you have done this, okay, you have added utterances, you have tagged the entity values. Now we come to the set context variable section where we say context dot entities dot the name of the entity, and this entity should be assigned the value that it picks up from the utterance of the user, the utterance which initiated this particular sub intent. The entity value is present within that utterance, so that entity value should be picked up and assigned into this entity. Now, how do we refer to that particular entity value which is present within the utterance of the user? So what we do over here is we say context dot identified subintents. Okay, so this is the way we refer to the sub-intent that has been identified. So identified sub-intents. There can be multiple sub-intents that can be identified from the utterance of the user. But here, since we are limiting ourselves to identifying a single sub-intent, okay, so the array position is 0. If there are multiple subintents which are identified, so it will be numbered in the order in which they have been identified. But since this is a single subintent that is getting identified, so the index position is 0. Dot entities, okay, dot the name of the entity. So once again, I'm repeating this. What I'm doing is I have added utterance where I have tagged the entity value. Okay, the purpose of this particular subintent is the user is once again changing the account ID only. He's amending the account ID, but he's specifying the new account number within the utterance itself. Okay, so the bot will not re-prompt the user for the account number because the user has provided the value within his utterance. So here we have added possible utterances for training the ML engine, and we have tagged the entity value over there, okay, with the respective entity. Now, once that is done, we train the ML engine and then we come to set context variables. Here we provide the name of the entity which has to be amended, okay? And once we do that, we want to assign the value that the user has provided in his utterance to this entity. Now, how do we refer to that particular value which is present within the user utterance? The way to do it is context dot identified subintents. Okay, so it is an array. If there are multiple subintents which are identified from the utterance of the user, internally an array gets created. So since this is a single subintent that is getting identified, so in the array, the index position of this particular subintent will be 0. And from there, the value that has been tagged for the respective entity. Okay, so entities dot the name of the entity. So we are picking up from that utterance and assigning it into the entity. Now we present a message to the user. Let's see, account number updated to And let's say we present the same new value once again so that the user can see that his account number has been updated. Okay, so we just provide that over here once again. And once we provide the message, now we do not jump to any flow or any node, but we continue with the conversation. We do not need to jump to any node over here because the bot doesn't need to reprompt the user for the entity value. So once the assignment has been done, the conversation can continue from wherever the sub-intent was identified. Okay, so that is why we say resume the dialogue. Once we do this configuration, we save this, okay? And let's see whether this one is working or not. So let us provide an account number over here, and then I'm putting an utterance like use account number. Okay, so you can see account number updated to 10. Okay, here you can see executing sub intent, update account ID. Okay, and the bot reprompts the user for the amount to transfer. If we go to session context and variables, you can see account ID has been updated to the new value that is extracted from the utterance of the user, which qualified the sub intent to 10. 10 is the new value that the user has provided over here. And then the conversation continues as it is. Okay, so these are, though these will not be specified to you when you are designing a conversation, when you are developing a task, but this is something that is very much required. Okay, because if you think of the end user side, end user can at any point of time express his desire or intent to change or amend an entity value. And there are two ways of doing it. Either he just provides an utterance where he says he wants to amend the entity value. There, we first need to remove the existing value of that entity and then jump back to that entity node. And the other where the user provides the entity value within the utterance itself. Okay, so there we need to extract the new value from the utterance, assign it into the entity, and then continue with the conversation. So you can define different sub-intents like this within the group of nodes that we have created. The sub-intents will come into the context only within this group of nodes. Once the group of node is out of context, that is, we go to the message node, or maybe there are some other nodes in this particular flow, but you are out of this group of node, these sub-intents will not be recognized by the NLP engine. So that is why they are known as sub-intents and not primary intents, which is recognized by the NLP engine, irrespective of where the user puts an utterance. Okay, and it does not make sense to define these as primary intents because these entities are with respect to a specific task only. So you cannot have a general task to amend all entity values. Okay, these entities will not be available also there. So it is only within a primary intent that you can define sub-intents to allow the user to amend the entity values. Okay, is it clear to you all the second configuration that we have done? Any questions on that?
I have one question.
Please go ahead.
So let's say we have a complex flow with say hundreds of nodes, and if I want to terminate that flow at any step and I want to go to the beginning of the flow, so would this be a good use case to create a group of all the nodes and
yes.
Let the user abort and go to the start?
Yeah, if he says you can define a sub-intent like that, means it an utterance over there, okay? And then if there are entities, remember if the entities contain values, even if you are jumping back to the first node, okay? the flow, it will not wait, okay? It will not reprompt the user for the entity values. So you have to first remove the existing, contents of those entities, okay? And then you can jump back to the first node, which is there in the entire flow, okay?
Okay. And can I have a group within group? So for example, you have a group for payment details. So can I put all 4 nodes?
No, you cannot.
Like, can I have one? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I just tried it out because I never tried that out. So within a group, I was trying to drag and see whether we can create another small group within it, but you cannot do it because this node is already a part of this group. It will not allow to include the same node again in another group. But you can have multiple groups, separate groups within a dialog task. That is possible.
Got it. Okay.
That is possible. But a particular node can belong to one group only. There's another thing that we can do with subintents. That is, at times you will see while a conversation is in flow, the user asks certain questions, okay, FAQs, but these FAQs, the user asks only when they are in a particular task. Okay, in general, we add FAQs under KG, okay, and those FAQs are answered by the KG engine, irrespective of where the user is asking them from. Okay, so the user can directly ask those questions in the conversation window. If the user is within a particular task and somewhere he asks that question, it triggers an interruption like we have seen yesterday, and the bot responds to that FAQ and then continues with the conversation. So those are general FAQs, and the KG engine or the NLP engine will respond to that FAQ if the utterance of the user matches with it. Okay, so if the ontology, the terms are present in that particular utterance, and within the qualified path, if the utterance of the user matches with the FAQs, then the bot will return the response of that FAQ. But there might be situations where you need to define certain queries which can come from the user only when a particular task is in the context. These are not general FAQs, but while the conversation is on, the user can ask some questions. Like in my case, since this is a task to transfer funds, the user can ask while he's transferring funds, he can ask, are there any charges for fund transfer? Or are there any charges for the payments that we are making? So 2 ways. I can make it very general FAQ. Anytime the user can ask it, and I can add this FAQ into the knowledge graph. Okay, but if I want to restrict the scope of this FAQ, if I want to restrict it, that only when the user is in this particular task, then only this FAQ should be entertained. Okay, this FAQ should be answered by the bot. Okay. Then also we can do it through a subintent. Okay, so these are various things that we can handle through a subintent. So once again, I go over here. Let's add a new intent. I just name it as let's say payment queries or queries. Okay, and here under machine learning, I add a few questions like that, similar questions. Okay, alternate questions will be handled as alternate utterances over here. So I have a few questions like that ready. So I'm just going to copy it so that I don't have to try it. Because if you are going in, one of the major reasons why I'm doing this is I'm not adding these as FAQ under KG. KG requires a lot of training and all. Okay, so you have to create an ontology node. You have to identify the key terms from the questions. Best is define a node in the ontology, associate the questions. So just for 1 or 2 questions which can come from the user while a particular task is on, instead of going through the KG, we can simply add those as sub-intents, and then we can provide the response over here. Okay, So once we add these, let's initiate the training of the ML engine. Remember, these are utterances, okay, alternate utterances, alternate questions, if you think of KGV, but these are utterances for the ML engine. So you have to initiate the training of the ML engine. And once the training is done, we don't do anything other than providing a message to the user where we are going to tell the user the charges of this particular transaction. Okay. So we just add an response like this and we click on save. So this means this is a small question, small query that can come from the user while this particular task is in the context. Okay, so okay, so you can see the response coming back from the bot as we have provided, and you can see here sub intent queries has been initiated and the response is returned. And once again, the conversation continues and the bot re-prompts the user for the account number. Okay, so for simple queries, one or two queries which can come from the user while a particular task is in execution, while a few nodes are in the context, instead of adding these questions into the KG section where you have to create an ontology node and then associate the questions, train the KG engine. So instead of going through all those processes, you can just define them as sub-intents and provide the response of the bot. Okay, so these are the few places where we can create sub-intents. Very important is entity amendment, because without sub-intents, entity amendment becomes difficult to handle. And the other is to handle these kind of small queries which can come from the user when a particular task is in the context. Okay, is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? Okay, now there is an extension of this. Okay, so this was defining sub-intents and all, but let's say, 1 second, let me just make a change over here. Okay. Now let's say we have the knowledge graph, we have FAQs inside it. Okay, so at times you would like to make sections of FAQs very context relevant. That means I have some FAQs related to credit cards and debit cards. Okay, so you can see over here this node called card, and under that I have questions related to credit cards and debit cards. Okay. Now, in general, while the conversation is on, the user asks any one of these questions, the bot will respond to these questions. Okay, but you will come across situations where you want to make these questions very context relevant. That means only when a particular task is in the context, the bot should respond to it. Okay, so there's a precondition to be applied on the availability of a section of questions which are predefined within the KG. Okay, defining them as sub-intents might be difficult because there is a whole lot of questions. Now today I have 3 questions. I could have defined it with it as a sub-intent within that particular task, like I did right now. But usually in KG section, under each term of the ontology, you can have hundreds of questions. Now defining all those hundreds of questions as sub-intents is not advisable. Through sub-intents, just if there are 1 or 2 questions, you can handle it. But if there are a whole lot of questions like this, okay, in that case, we will always advise that you put it into the knowledge graph, okay, because you can do a lot of training when you are providing it within the knowledge graph. But I want to apply a condition that when a particular task is in the context, then only these questions should be answered. If the user is not in the apply card task, then the bot should not respond to any questions related to credit cards or debit cards. Okay, so how do we impose a precondition like this? Okay, for that, we first need to know how do we get to know which task is in the context. So if you, while talking to the bot, whenever the utterance of the user, okay, something like this, if I say, how much money do I have? So you can see the check balance task has been initiated. But if you come to session context and variables, and there is a section called custom variables, if you come here, you will see current tags. There's a section called current tags, which contains the name of the task, which is in the context. So you can see currently the check balance task is in the context and the name of that task is available within the current tags. Whatever label, okay, or whatever text is available within the current tags, that can, those text or those labels can be used as a precondition. That means right now the name of the task check balance is in the context. So whenever a task is initiated by the NLP engine, the name of that task is added into the context. Okay, so we can use that, or sorry, not into the context, into the current tags. And we can use that label which is present within the current tags as a precondition for accessibility of this particular node in the bot ontology. How do we do that? We come to the settings over here and we say, you can see manage context where you have intent precondition. What is my precondition? My precondition is the name of the task, that is apply card. Okay, so only when this label is present in the current tags, this node is accessible by the KG engine. Okay, if the node is not accessible, the questions which are saved or stored within this particular node is not accessible to the KG engine. Okay, so that is why I'm applying the precondition to a node in the KG. And what is my precondition? It is the name of the task which should be in the context for these questions to be answered by the bot. Okay, so my name of the task is apply card. Now what I do is I pick up one of these questions. Okay, what should I, any one of these questions. The small little changes I'll do because the task name is also apply card. So what happens is if I go in for that question, due to the word match algorithm, it is going to qualify the apply card task. So I'm just making certain changes to show you all how it will work. So I just come to the thresholds and configurations and to the FM engine, and I disable intent detection using task name words. Okay, so partial matching of task name words should not allow the NLP engine to qualify that task. The reason being that the name of the task is apply card, and when I'm asking this particular question, how can I generate the PIN for my debit card? One of the label words is present in the utterance of the user. So what will happen is the FM engine, using the word match algorithm, which we have discussed in the basic training session, will qualify the apply card task. Okay, so I don't want that to happen, but I want to see whether KG is returning the response of this particular question, or whether KG is qualifying this particular question. Because right now, within the current tags, if you come here, you do not get to see any of those parameters available, those objects available, because the conversation has not yet been initiated. So we do not have anything under the current tags which will be used as a precondition. So I'm just putting this question over here. And you can see there is a failure in intent identification. Whereas if I ask any other FAQs, like, what is pre-approved car loan. Okay, KG responds to that. Okay, or what is okay, KG responds to that, but only when this question, sorry, there must be some this thing. Okay, anyways, okay, but only when what is happening when the question is this, okay, how can I generate the PIN for my debit card? Though this question is there within my KG section, the question is not qualified. Okay, but if I start the apply card task, okay, so if I put an utterance which qualifies the apply card task, okay, and let's see, I select the card type over here as a credit card. Okay, and here I ask the question once again. Okay, any question. You can see, sorry, 1 second. Let me just check it. One second, just give me a second. So when that particular task is in the context, the precondition is satisfied, and then you will see the bot will respond to that. Okay. So let me just see whether the conditions are saved correctly or not. Just give me a second. There's some failure taking place. Let me just see it. You can see KG has extracted the entities for qualification. Okay, so credit and card has been extracted, but it is not allowing me to. Some problem with that node. Let me just see. Oh. This should work. Let me just see why it is not working, because This should not be a problem. There are some issues that has taken place on our platform post 9.0 release, okay, due to which some of the configurations are not working. So let me just check whether this is working or not. Then I'll explain it to you, because by default also this is not working, because though we have not provided any precondition, but still the bot is not responding to these questions. Yeah, this time it is working. Okay, so this time you can see it's working. There was something wrong. So you can see when the task is not in the context, at that time, if the user is asking a question which has a precondition associated with it, the node with which this question is associated in the ontology, if there is a precondition applied on that node and the text or the label that you have provided as a precondition is not present under the current tags, then the condition is not satisfied and the bot does not return the response of this FAQ. Because KG cannot access that node, KG cannot qualify that node because the precondition is not satisfied. But when I am in this particular task, okay, and here what I'm doing is, so the moment I'm in this particular task, the name of the task is available under the current tags. So my precondition for qualification of these two nodes is the apply card. These text or these labels should be present under the current tags. Now these labels will come into the current tags when this particular task is in the context. So the moment I initiate the apply card task and the current tags has these words inside it, the precondition is satisfied. And now if I ask a question, one of these questions which are there, you can see the bot returns the response of that particular question. So what we are doing here is that we are making sections of knowledge graph context relevant.
This is not a very common settings, but many a time you can come across situations like this where you may not want the bot to respond to a question all the time. It is only with context of a particular task that the bot should be responding to that particular question. Or there can be another way of looking into it. Let's say I'm in the apply card task. Okay, and here the user selects credit card and then he asks the question, when will my card arrive? Of course, since he has selected credit card over here, this question is in context of credit card. Okay, this question is relevant for credit card. He will not like to see the arrival time for a debit card. Okay, so he is asking the question, when will my card arrive? Now here you will see it typically leads to an ambiguity, okay, where it will present both of it to the user that, do you want the question for debit card or do you want the question for the credit card? Okay, so in these situations, how we can handle it better? Okay, so the bot should only respond when the question is coming like this. The bot should only respond with the question which is related to credit card, and if the user selects debit card over here, the bot should respond to the question related to debit card only. Okay, now how do we go in for something like this? Okay, you can also do it on any other nodes. Okay, it is not only on these two nodes. Let's say on the account node, you have questions related to savings account and current account. Now you have the open account task. Okay, now if in the open account task, you have an entity where the user can select the account type. Now, if the user selects the account type as savings, then the bot should answer to all questions related to savings account. Okay. In the same way, if the user selects current, then the bot should answer all questions related to current account. Okay, so these kind of things can be done across a lot of tasks. Okay, so how do we do something like that? We make the questions very context relevant, depending on the conversation, depending on the type of, in my case, the type of card he has selected, we want that response to be evaluated. So if the user selects a credit card and then he asks, when will my card arrive, the bot should have the intelligence to understand that this question is related to credit card. Similarly, if the user selects debit card and then the user asks, when will my card arrive, the response should be given for the debit card because that is the type of card the user has selected. Now, how do we make these kind of training? How do we give this kind of training to the NLP to make it context relevant? Okay, to make the answers very context relevant. Okay, so one we have seen is the name of the task is added into the context. What is the other thing? Okay, now when you come to an entity value, now let's come to this entity value. You can see these are two possible entity values, that is credit card and debit card. Okay, the user can either say credit card, the user can either select credit card or debit card. Now, when a particular entity value is selected by the user, okay, so if you see here, you will see in the current tags now, whatever is present in the current tags, that can only be used as a precondition. So right now, if I'm in the apply card task, you will see the name of the task is in the current tags. Okay, so you can see apply card is there in the current tags and the bot is prompting the user to select the type of card he wants to apply. But if I select debit card over here, the card type selected by the user, though the entity will show you the captured value for this particular entity is debit, but you do not get to see this value within the current tags. Okay, so you do not get to see what kind of card the user has selected within the current tags, and we cannot apply precondition unless and until that label is present within the current tags. So how do we emit the entity value that has been captured into the current tags so that it can be used as a precondition? Okay, so for that purpose, come to the settings of that entity node. Okay, come to the settings over here. And if you go to the instance properties of that entity and in the advanced controls, one second. In the NLP properties of the entity, you will see the manage context over here, and there you have the option of auto emit entity values captured. Now, where will it emit those entity values? It will emit the entity values captured into the current tags. And only when the entity value captured is emitted into the current tags, we can use that entity value as a precondition. Okay, so I am enabling this particular option. Okay, and then let's see what is the change when we are talking to the bot. Now, these are not very general configurations, but these are certain things which are possible on our platform, and you might come across use cases where you need to apply these kind of, preconditions to make your KG and all context relevant. Okay, so this time you can see the type of card selected. Okay, so the user selected credit card, but the value that got captured for the entity is credit, and you can see the entity value present in the current tags. Now, once the entity value is available within the current tags, I can use this as a precondition. So what I do is I come back to the knowledge graph section and I make a change over here where I remove the task name as a precondition and I add the entity value captured as the precondition over here. Okay, so from the precondition, I'm going to remove the task name and add the entity value. Okay, so I come back here, come back to the settings of this node. I remove this and I say that this node will be accessible when the label credit is present within the current tags. Okay, in the same way, this node will be accessible when the label debit is present within the current tags. Okay, so I'm making these questions very context relevant. Okay, what I'm trying to do over here is make it context relevant so that depending on the type of card the user has selected, a particular path in your KG will be qualified. Okay. So let's select credit card over here. Let's provide an and here the user asks, when will my card arrive? Okay, so you can see it has responded back, okay, with the credit card. Okay, the response is coming with respect to the credit card. Though my KG has two very similar questions. When will my debit card arrive? When will my credit card arrive? And if you all remember what we had discussed in the basic training session, that is, if this utterance is coming from the user, only the parent term is present in the utterance of the user. Okay, so the parent term is present. So now KG has access to all the questions from the child terms. And within the child terms, if it gets similar questions, and if there are multiple similar questions which qualify, KG will present all those questions to the user. Okay, but still here you can see NLP has the intelligence to understand that though the user has asked when will my card arrive, it is returning the response for credit card because the user had selected credit card over here. How it is doing it, if you come back to session context and variables and you go here, okay, I didn't show it to you earlier, but anyways, in the historic tags, that is before the task ends, whatever is there in the current tags is currently displayed in the historic tag. And you can see the type of card the user has selected is present over here. Okay, and this is a precondition to qualify one of the child nodes within KG. So from the qualified child node, which where the precondition is satisfied, KG finds a question which is similar to the utterance of the user and returns the response of that question. So what you are doing is you are making this very context relevant, so that if the user asks something like this and he actually does not say which type of card his question is related to, KG has the intelligence to understand, since the type of card the user had selected is a credit card, this question must be related to that type of card. And it returns the response of that question with the respect of the type of card the user has selected. Okay. So this intelligence, you can build it through the preconditions. Remember, whatever is to be used as a precondition, it is just a simple text, okay? But that text should be present under the current tags. So you have to add that text into the current tags. If it is a dialog task, that needs to be in the context, okay? Then the name of the dialog task is always added into the current tags. But if there is any other thing, okay, many a time you will see a particular question is answered by KG, and there is some other question, the user can ask it as a follow-up question only. Okay, so the user cannot directly ask that question. Okay, the user has asked one question and then he can follow it up with another question. Okay, so this second question has a precondition, that is the initial question must be asked by the user, and then only the user can ask the second question. So it is a follow-up question. How do you implement something like this? For the initial question, okay, whichever question, okay, so for the initial question, what you can do is come to the settings of this, sorry. For the initial question, whenever a particular node is in the context, you can emit a label into the current tag. So from context output, if I say savings, okay, is a label that should be populated into the current tags. Okay, now once this label is populated into the current tags, I can use that as a precondition for some other question, okay, or for qualifications of some node over here, or for for some dialog task also. Okay, so whenever you are qualifying a dialog task, there also you can apply preconditions. So it is not that only preconditions can be applied on KG questions, but you can also apply preconditions on dialog tasks. So only when another task or maybe a particular question has been asked by the user, after that the user can follow it up with a dialog task. Okay, so then how do you do that? When you come to the settings of a dialog task, let me just show it to you all. Okay, you have preconditions over here. So under the NLP properties of a particular user intent node, this user intent node will be qualified only when this precondition is satisfied. So precondition is just a label which is present in the current tags. That label can be populated from a KG question, or that label can be populated from a dialog task. Okay, so I can add that label as a precondition over here, so that only when that label is available in the current tags, this task will be qualified. So you are making the tasks or nodes within the ontology very context relevant. Okay, is the purpose of this clear to you all? Okay. These are very specific use case specific settings, this preconditions. The subintents are very general, like entity amendment and all, but preconditions are very use case specific, and many a time many enterprises want these kind of conditions to be applied. So that you can do it through the preconditions. Now coming to the next part of our discussion, which is a very important settings, that is how to make the bot multilingual. Okay, and before we do that, I'm going to discuss the use of variables. Okay, so first we will see how we can use variables within our task configuration, and then we will follow it up with language enablement. Now, let's say we have the check balance task. Okay, now within the check balance task, we have an API configuration. Okay, so usually if you're working in a production environment, you will see while you are building the tasks, okay, while you are configuring the tasks, you are provided with a list of APIs. Okay, you configure the tasks with those APIs and then you test your flows. Okay, you test the conversation, everything you do. And before you deploy the bot to the end user, you need to change the APIs to the ones which will work when the end users are connected to the bot. So as long as we are working on developing the tasks, we use a certain set of APIs. Only when we are sure that the tasks are configured properly, the NLP has been trained correctly, responses are returned correctly, and we go ahead with the deployment of the bot to the end user, the actual APIs come into play. Okay, those are the APIs which will access the data sources in the back end when end users are connected to the bot. Okay, so this is a very frequent requirement. This is actually how we do the service configurations and all. We do not use the actual APIs right from the starting, because while we are configuring the task, there might be a lot of garbage values which get added. We are just adding test data, so we do not want this test data and all to be actually added into the tables which is holding the end user information. So that for that particular purpose, we have some dummy tables and all available where we test our configurations. And once we see that the configurations are working correctly, then we replace it with the actual APIs. Now, in my case, I have only two service nodes where I have used these APIs. Okay, one is in the check balance task, one is in the open account task. So today, if somebody tells me you need to change your API, I can come to these service nodes and make the changes. But if you look into a real-time bot, you will see a lot of service nodes are configured within your tasks and a lot of APIs are configured. Okay. So to make changes in these APIs will be a very tedious work for the developers. Okay, so individually they have to go to each task configuration and update the APIs over there. If they forget any one of the service nodes, that service node will still have the old API, which will refer to a table which should not be used in the production environment. Okay, how we can have a better way of controlling this. For this purpose, what we can do is we can define variables. Okay, so we come to configurations over here, and you can see something called environmental variables. So we can create variables where we can store the API endpoints. So we just click on add variable, give a name to the variable, let's say account API, any name to it. And in the value, we store the API with which we want to work. Okay, now you can add a note over here. That is what is the purpose of this API. That is to access the, okay, and we save this. Now, once you have created a variable like this variable should be created before you start off with your task configurations. But once you have created a variable which stores your API, what you can do is, while you are configuring the tasks, instead of hard coding the APIs within the service nodes, you can use those variables that you have defined. Okay, so I come here, I click on edit request, and I replace this API with the variable that I have defined. Okay, how do we do it? We put double curly braces. We say env because it's an environmental variable. So env dot, immediately the name of the variable will come up in the auto populate box. So select it and close your double curly braces. Okay, so you will see that this will show you currently this variable contains this API. Okay, so right now, if I'm testing this particular call, which API will be used for testing the call? the API which is stored in this particular variable. Tomorrow, if I need to change the API, okay, I don't need to come to the service node anymore. Okay, all I need to do is I need to go back to that particular variable that I have defined. Okay, so I can come here and directly change the API in the variable. So in all the tasks where the variable has been used, the new API will come into play. Okay, so instead of hard coding, it is a very good practice where APIs can change. Never go in for hard coding your APIs. Okay, create variables and store the APIs inside that. Use those variables within your task configurations. Okay, tomorrow, if your API is changing, your API endpoint is changing, you do not need to come back to the task configurations and update the APIs in the service node. All you need to do is go back to the definition of the API, of the variable, that is the environmental variable. Click on the edit button and change the API over here. Whatever is the new API you replace it with, the service nodes will use the new API, because in the service nodes, I have just used this variable. So whatever is the current content of that variable, that API will be used for making the service calls. Okay, so a very efficient way when you have possibilities that your APIs can change. And in real life bots, you will see while you're working on the bot development part, you are provided with a set of APIs, which are the test APIs. Okay, but when you go in for deploying the bot in the production environment, all your APIs will change to the actual APIs, which should come into play when the end users are connected to the bot. So never hard code your APIs within your service node, rather create variables and store the APIs within the variables and use those variables in your service node configurations. Okay, is it clear to you all the purpose of creating environmental variables? Any questions on this? Okay. Another advantage of creating environmental variables is when you are exporting the bot. Okay, now let's say from one system you're taking the bot to another system. Okay, or let's say you are giving a copy of your bot to somebody else, okay, or to maybe your clients, and you have created your task configurations with a set of test APIs. But when the clients are importing the bot, or your stakeholders, or maybe some other team is importing the bot within their server, they want to change the APIs that are used in the service node configurations. Okay, so when you are exporting a bot, and if there are environment variables which are defined within your bot configuration, and those environment variables are used in your service node configuration, then you will see those variables are part of the bot export. By that, what I mean is, now if I extract the content of this file, within this particular folder, we have a file called config.json file. Now this file actually contains the definition of your environmental variables. Okay, so if you open this file, you can see this is my environmental variable, the name of it is this, and this is the value which is currently stored within the variable. So if developers want, they can replace these APIs within the config.json file before they import the bot into the new environment. So when they replace these environmental variables with the new APIs to be used, you will see within the imported bot, the environmental variables will contain the APIs that are provided within the config.json file. So they don't need to import the bot with the existing content of those variables and then go to the variables and make the changes. But before doing the import, they can directly come to the config.json file and update the APIs over here and then start off with the import method. Okay, so that is why environmental variables are a very good way of managing API endpoints when there is a possibility that these API endpoints might change when you are taking your bot to your production environment, or when you are exporting your bot to your new environment. So in those cases, always go in for defining variables and use the variables in your task configuration. Is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? Okay. In the same way, we can also create another type of variable, which is known as a content variable. Now, content variables are typically used for storing bot messages and bot prompts. Okay, like for the account ID entity over here in the check balance task, I'm just going to keep a single prompt over here just to show you all the working of it. Okay, so I have this particular prompt, enter your account number. Okay, now this particular prompt has been hard coded into this entity. You will come across situations where these prompts needs to change depending on the installation of your bot. Okay, so in different installations of your bot at different servers, your entity prompts, your bot messages might need to change. Okay, for your client, if you have built your bot, there are multiple clients who are using the same bot maybe, but they want the prompts and the messages to be different. Okay, so whenever you are exporting your bot from your server into a new server, okay, you need to go and manually make changes in all these prompts and messages depending on the requirement. Okay, what is a more efficient way of handling this? In these situations, what you can do is you can create content variables where you can store your bot prompts and messages. Okay, so environmental variables are typically used for API endpoints, or if you have some values which you are using, in your script notes, maybe some percentage values and all, which you could be using in your script note calculations, which might fluctuate every day. Then you can create an environmental variable with those values inside it and use the variable in your script node, calculation, in your JavaScript calculations and all. And every day when those values are fluctuating, you do not need to go to the individual script nodes to make the changes. Because if you are hard coding those values, you have to go to the script nodes to make the changes. But here, what you can do is you can come to the environment variable section and update the new value over there. Okay. Similarly, if it is for bot prompts and messages, then we come to content variables. We click on add variable. Let's say I name it as account ID prompt. Okay. And we put a value over here, like please enter your account number. Okay, and we save this. So I have defined a variable which stores my prompt, please enter your account number. Okay, what I do is I come back to this task. Okay, and instead of hard coding this prompt in this entity, I just use that variable. Okay, so here I say, since this is a content variable, the way to refer to that variable is content dot the name of the variable. So what will happen is whatever is the current content of this variable, when the bot is prompting the user for the account number, that particular prompt will be used. So whatever is defined within this variable, that text will be used as a prompt of the account ID. Okay, so right now, if I'm talking to the bot and if I'm in the check balance task, okay, you will see the prompt is coming from that variable. Okay, so please enter your account number. This is the prompt that I have defined within the variable, and in the entity prompt, I have used the variable and not hard coded the prompt over here. Okay, so tomorrow, if you need to change the prompt, all you need to do is my spelling of prompt is incorrect. Please excuse that. All I need to do is I come to content variable over here, click on the edit button and change it here. Okay, so I don't need to go back to my task configurations to update the prompts. Okay, so that is the use of content variables. Is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? Okay. Now let's look into how we can enable multiple languages for the bot. And while we are enabling languages, what is the advantage of having content variables? Okay, so to enable multiple languages so that the end user can talk to the bot in a language of his choice, we need to come to languages under the configurations option. Okay, and you can see the language in which we have done the initial task configurations, that is known as the default language. Okay, but to enable additional languages for your bot, you click on add language over here, which will come up with the list of all the languages which are available in our platform. Now, when you are enabling a language for the bot, there are certain things that you need to do. The first is when you enable a language, your task, the dialog task configurations will be copied into the new language that you are enabling. Okay, but within this dialog task, all your prompts, the bot messages, the bot prompts has to be changed into the new language that you are enabling. So our platform will not automatically convert all those prompts and messages to the new language that you enable. When you enable a language, it actually means NLP can understand utterances coming from the user in this language. But NLP will not automatically convert or translate all your bot prompts, messages, KG questions and responses into the new language that you are enabling. So that is a manual effort on your part and on the part of the developer, that when a new language is enabled, all the bot prompts and messages in the tasks, in the dialog tasks, has to be changed into the new language that has been enabled. The KG section has to be recreated in the new language that you are enabling. So your KG questions, the responses, the ontology, though you have created it in the default language, it will not be copied into the new language that you are enabling. And your entire NLP training has to be redone in the new language, because your utterances will change, your patterns will change with words in the new language that you're enabling. So all of these things has to be done manually by the developers or by the NLP trainers who are enabling the new language for the bot. Okay, if you are not doing this, then though there are certain things that the bot will understand in the new language, that is your greetings and all. I would request you all to be on mute. Okay, so though the bot will be able to understand, the greetings and all, that is the small talk, the default small talk, if the user initiates the conversation in the new language that is enabled, but later on you will see task identification and all is not working because you have not trained KG, you have not trained the NLP in the new language that you have enabled. Okay, so no conversion will take place automatically. Okay, your prompts, your messages, your KG FAQs and the responses, your NLP training that you have done in the default language will not be translated into the new language automatically. Okay, but let us see how we do all of these things. So I'm going to enable the German language for my bot. Okay, so I just click on the configure button. Now there are two ways in which you can enable a language. The first way, let's see the first way, that is copy the default language. This means that the dialog task configurations from the default language will be copied into the new language that you are enabling. What is my default language over here? The default language is English. So all my dialog task configurations from the English language will be copied into the German language, because now internally the platform will maintain two versions of the bot configuration, one in the English language and one in the German language. Okay, so now if I just say copy default language and I click on enable, you will see it is importing the task configurations from your default language into the new language. And once it is complete, once the task has been copied, you can see over here, you can toggle between the two languages from this particular button. Okay, so you have the English version of the bot. If you click on the German, it will show you the German version of this particular bot's configuration. Okay, so you can see the tasks are over here, but you do not see any KG questions. You can see the small talk, the greeting small talk, the default small talk is available. If you click here, you will see everything in the German language. So these are certain things that are automatically done whenever you enable a particular language. So you can see the bot responses in the German language. If you come to the concept section under natural language, okay, so you can see all this emotion goodbye, emotion happy, which has been used in the small talk. All of these are in the German language. Okay, so from the platform end, whatever you get, if you see the standard responses, the responses that come back from the bot, whenever there are some events that take place, maybe the number of retries, okay, when the bot is reprompting the user for the entity value, and the number of retries is exceeded, the bot comes back with a message. Okay, those messages are defined within the standard responses. Okay, so if you come to the standard responses of the bot, you will see all the standard responses are now in the German language. So whatever comes from the platform end, that gets automatically converted into the new language that you are enabling. Okay, but whatever configurations you have done, those are not changed into the new language. So you can see the KG part does not contain any questions and answers. Okay, so that has to be rebuilt, or you can have an CSV file or a JSON file where you have all your questions and answers now in the German language. You can import it within the bot now. Okay, but before that, make sure that you select the German language over here. Similarly, if you come to the training part, you do not get to see any utterances or patterns. Okay, though we had defined utterances and patterns in the English language, they are not automatically imported into the German language. But what is imported? The dialog task configurations are all imported. So now if I come to check balance, you can see that the dialog task configurations are all imported. Okay, now what is the advantage? So now what do I need to do? Okay, so that this task responds to the user in the German language. If the user is talking to the bot in that language, I need to change all my prompts and messages within this particular task configuration, right? Because you can see everything is in the English language right now. I need to make changes in these prompts and messages in the German language. Okay, but there is one node over here where I have used a content variable. Okay, now to update this prompt into the German language, I do not need to change anything in the task configuration. All I need to do is I come to the configurations. Right now, my German language is selected over here. I come to content variables. You can see the same content variable with the prompt in English. I just change it into the German language. Okay, I don't know the language, so I have some prompts and already, so I'm just going to copy from there. So I'm just going to put this particular prompt, that is the prompt to enter the account number in the content variable, and I save it. Okay, now the advantage is that if I go back to the English language, okay, you will see that content variable will contain the prompt in the English language. So these content variables are actually maintained separately for each language that you enable for the bot. Okay, so right now this prompt is in the English language because I'm in the English version of the bot. Okay, similarly, if I go to the German version of the bot, the same variable will contain the prompt in the German language. And the advantage in this case is since in the task, in that entity, I have used the variable, I do not need to go and make any changes over there. Okay, so if the user is talking to the bot in the English language, the prompt will come from the English version of this particular variable. And if the user is talking to the bot in the German language, then the prompt will be picked up from the German version of this content variable. So whenever there's a possibility that you are going to enable multiple languages for the bot, it is always a good practice that you store all your prompts and messages into content variables and use those variables in your task configuration. So that when your new language comes into play, when you're enabling a new language, you do not need to go to the task configurations and manually make the changes in the configuration of the prompts and the messages. Okay, is it clear to you all the purpose of the content variables? Okay, I'll just make some changes over here. I'll just update this prompts and all to the German language, because I have used a variable only for the entity, but for the rest of the confirmation node and all, I have to make the changes manually. Okay, and if you don't want to do this, because this is not a good practice, so that you don't have to redo your entire work once again, right from the starting, make sure that you define content variables and define your prompts over there and use the content variables in your task configurations. Okay, similarly, I'll do a little bit of NLP training so that if an utterance comes from the user in the German language, the task can be qualified correctly. Okay, so I'm coming to the training. Always remember, whenever you're making these changes, you ensure that the language is selected correctly over here. Otherwise, it will go and update some other language. Whichever language is here, the updates take place on that particular language version of the bot. Okay, so I come to check balance task. I add an utterance over here, an ML utterance, and I add these two utterances. You can define patterns and all with words in the German language using the same operators. The operators and all remain the same. It's only the words that you are defining within those patterns that has to change as per the language that you have enabled. Okay. Now, once the training is done, we are going to talk to the bot in both the languages, in the English language and the German language. Okay, now let's say I start the conversation in the German language with the greetings in the German language. Let's see how what the NLP does. Immediately you can see NLP has detected a change in the language. Okay, now the German language is enabled. That is why NLP is able to detect the change in the language. So right now it is telling you that I have detected your input is in German language. Please say yes to continue in German language or no to continue with the English language. That is the default language. Okay, so if I say yes over here, it will show you that it has changed the language to German, and now it comes back with the response of this particular greetings that I had provided in the German language. Now, this detection of the change in the language is possible only because I have enabled this language for the bot. If the language is not enabled, the bot will not understand anything, and you will see intent identification failure coming up in that case. Okay. Now let's say I put an utterance to qualify that task. Okay. So I have added this as an ML utterance. So let's see whether the check balance task is qualified here or not. So you can see it is asking me, so the task has been qualified correctly by the NLP engine because this is one of the training utterances. Let's provide an account number. So you can see all my messages are coming up, and the yes, no options, I did not make change, but these are certain things that are done automatically by the platform end. Okay, so these are the ways of representing yes and no in the German language. So that is automatically done by the platform, and you can see it comes back with the balance in the account of the user. Now your API is not going to change. Your service node configuration, your script node configuration, your logic nodes, those usually do not change. Logic nodes still might change if you are testing with some values that can change as per the language, but typically your script nodes, your service nodes, these do not change as per the language of conversation. What changes are the bot prompts and the bot messages. Okay. Now, if I say, something like this, once again, it has detected a change in the language from German to English. And if I say, yes, I want to change back to the English language, it has changed the language over here and responds to the user in the English language. Okay, so once you enable multiple languages, you can change your language from one language to another while you are in conversation with the bot. Okay, is it clear to you all what we are doing over here? Any questions with this? It's a very important feature of your bot, very important configuration, because most of the time we need to make our bots multilingual. Okay, we cannot keep our bots conversing only in single language. So for that purpose, you can enable as many languages as you want. There is no limitations on the number of languages that you can enable for the bot. But remember, when you are enabling a language at the configuration end, you need to update your prompts and messages. Your KG has to be defined once again, and your NLP training has to be redone in the new language that you have enabled. Okay, is it clear to you all? Any questions on that? Okay. The other way of enabling languages is if you are enabling another language. Okay, so there you can say go in for the second one, that is use Spanish language configuration file. Now, why do we need this? Now, as you have seen that when we are enabling a particular language, what we need to do is we need to change all the prompts and messages and everything. Okay, all the configurations of the bot. Now, for that, the person needs to know how the bot configuration works. Okay, so if you don't know your task configurations, if you don't know how to define KG questions and answers, or if you don't know how to train the NLP, you will not be able to enable the language. Okay, because you have to go and make the changes there. Okay, but many a time what happens is the developer who is enabling the language may not know the language. Like I don't know the German language. It is not possible to use Google Translate to translate and do it. Okay, a person has to know the language well to train the bot in that particular language. Okay, so what is the other way? The other way is either you share your bot with a person who knows the language and ask that person to make the changes accordingly. But that may not be a secured way, because the concerned person gets access to your task configuration and all, and he or she can make any changes to it. Okay, so instead of just changing the prompts and the messages, he or she can go and make changes in the entire task configuration, which may not be a desired thing to do. Okay, so in these situations, you can download a JSON file which contains all the bot prompts, messages, concepts, NLP, training, KG questions, responses, synonyms, whatever, in a JSON file in the default language, okay, or any other language which is already enabled and you have trained the bot. Okay, so you can download a JSON file, share the JSON file with the concerned person. Okay, and ask that person to make changes in the JSON file. So you are not allowing that person to directly access the configuration of the bot, but rather what you are doing is you are sharing a JSON file which contains all your bot prompts, messages, KG questions, answers, your concept definitions, your NLP training, everything is there within this file. Okay, so that person can make changes in these texts in the new language that you want to enable. Save it here in this JSON file, and once all of it has been updated in this JSON file, you can upload that file back and enable the language which is available within that file. So you are not sharing the bot with the other person. You are not allowing the person to make access the configuration of the tasks and all directly, but rather what you are doing is you are just sharing a JSON file which contains all your bot prompts, messages, questions, responses, your NLP training, everything is there in that JSON file. So the person can just make the changes in these texts, share the file back with you. You upload that JSON file over here and enable the new language. Okay, so this is the second way in which you can enable a language for your bot. There's no limit on the number of languages that you can enable for the bot. Okay, is it clear to you all the two processes? Okay, you can also select the, yeah, please go ahead.
Of these of the two methods, like, is there one that's recommended, more popular, typically done?
Recommended is if you do not know, it depends from developers to developers. Okay, if you do not know the person, you are the developer, if you do not know the new language that you are enabling, then go in for the second method. Don't go in for the first method, because that gives access to the configuration of the bot. Okay, so the second method is advisable. But if you yourself are doing this enablement, you know the new language in which you want to enable the bot, then it's easier to go with the first one. Okay, instead of downloading a JSON file, doing the changes there, uploading the file back, just directly copy from the default language and make the changes within the bot itself. Okay, so it depends on whether the person who is enabling the language knows the language or not. Okay, in my case, the second method will be better.
All right, thank
Clear?
you.
Okay. You can also define the language selection logic. Okay, so the default is every user message. So that is why while you are talking to the bot, NLP will always try to detect the language in which the utterance is received from the user. And if NLP sees there is a change in the language in which the utterance is received, it will ask for a confirmation with the user before the language is changed. Okay, so that is because of this particular language selection time frame, that is with every user message, NLP will try to detect the language of the user. You can change it to per session, that is the language that is used at the starting of a session. A session means a conversation that is taking place between the user and the bot. Okay, if there is a break in the conversation for more than 15 minutes, it is taken as the end of one session. And after that, when the user starts off the conversation once again, it is starting of the next session. Or a session comes to an end when the user closes the conversation window. Okay, so at the starting of a session, whatever is the language used by the user, that will be set as the language throughout the session. Okay, the user cannot change the language somewhere in between. Okay, so I start in German language, I have to continue in German language throughout the session. Okay, somewhere in between, suddenly I say something in English, the bot will not allow me to change my language to English. For that, I have to close that session and start off the conversation all over again. Okay, so that is the per session detection of the language. And for enterprise users, they can have their preferred language, and whenever that user logs in, NLP sets up the language, which is the preferred language of the user, as the language of conversation. So that is the lifetime, that is whenever that user logs in, that language will be used as the language of the conversation. It cannot be changed while the conversation is on. If the user wants to change his language of conversation, his profile details needs to be updated by the admin, where he's going to change the language of that particular user. Okay, so that is the lifetime settings of a particular user. Okay, the usual is every user message. And remember, if you are in a particular task, okay, let's say I start off my conversation in the English language. Yes, currently it is in the English language. Yeah. I am in a particular task. Okay, so I'm in the make payment task. Now here, suddenly I put an utterance in another language. Okay, so let's say, 1 second, I put up this. So here I want to check my balance, but the utterance to trigger that task, I put it in the German language. Okay, interruption is allowed on the bot right now, so I just put in the German language. So you can see once again the change in the language has been detected by NLP, though we are within a particular task. And when I say yes, okay, you can see it continues with that particular task. So it is a seamless, transition from one language to another. Okay, so though there was a change in the conversation, you can see the check balance has been initiated right now, but the make payment task has been discarded. Okay, so whichever task was in use, okay, was in the context, that task will be discarded. Okay, the new task for which you have put the utterance in the new language, that will be initiated, but the current task, that is the context, gets refreshed. So whichever task you are in, within that particular task, if there is a change in the language, that task will be discarded when the language is changed. So that means the context is refreshed, and now the new task is initiated in the new context. So it starts off with the check balance task. Okay, so you can change languages while you are within a particular task. Okay, so that is something that happens when you have this particular language detection time frame. Is it clear to you all? What does this do? There is also an additional need that at times you will come across situations where you will be told that certain tasks should be available in specific languages only. Okay, so there might be a specific task configured within the bot which should be available in the default language. Everything is available in the default language, remember that. Okay, but that task should be available only in the default language and in the German language. Okay, if there are some additional languages which are enabled for the bot, this task should not be available in those languages. Now, how do you do that? Okay, when you are publishing a bot to the end users, when you are deploying the bot, you can select the language in which the task should be deployed. Okay, the default language is always selected. You cannot disable that. Okay, but for other tasks which you get to see over here, like apply card is selected, but I'm just disabling that because I have not trained apply card in the German language, but I have trained the check balance task in the German language. So I say that in the German language, only the check balance task is available. Okay, all the other tasks which are configured within the bot, they are not available in the German language because the language has not been selected at the time of deployment. So now if I deploy this bot and talk to the bot as an end user, you will see when the conversation is on in the German language, I can only initiate the check balance task because that task is available in the German language. I cannot initiate any other task, okay, because these tasks are not deployed in the German language. But in the English language, all the tasks are available, and I can initiate any one of the tasks in the English language. Okay, so you can make your tasks language relevant also by deploying the deploying the task in a specific language only, or selecting the languages in which you want that task to be available. Okay, is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? These are certain very common requirements. When you go into your actual bot building, you will see these requirements come up. Okay, certain languages should have certain tasks only. That is how you do it. Okay, enable that language when you are deploying the bot. Only for those tasks. For the other tasks where the task should not be available in a selected language, do not select the language against that particular task at the time of deployment. Okay. So this is what you do with a language enablement. And remember, if you're doing multilingual bots, a good practice is define all your prompts and messages and content variables so that you do not need to go to the task configurations to change your prompts and messages. Content variables are stored internally as separately for each language that you enable for the bot. Okay. I have been talking about the thing sessions, okay, and I said 15 minutes of disruption in a conversation is taken as the end of one session. And after that, if you start your conversation once again, it is taken as the starting of another session. You can control your session from here where you have managed sessions. And you can see here it is given 15 minutes of inactivity is taken as the end of a session. Okay. So if you want to change it to something more than 15 minutes, or if you want less, duration like 10 minutes or 5 minutes, you can change it from here. And when a session is coming to an end, the bot will display a response like this. I'm ending your current conversation. This is the German version actually for the bot. So I'm ending your session, okay, and you can start over all whenever you want. Okay, so you can see this will be the response that comes from the bot when it ends a particular session. So the context gets refreshed. So if you were in between some task, the task will be terminated. So after the break of 15 minutes or so, if you want to continue with that task, you have to initiate that task all over again. Okay, so that is a session and you can control it from manage sessions. Is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? Okay, so let's take a break. Okay, and let's take a break of 15 minutes and then we will continue with the rest of the session. I hope all of you all are back from the break, and let's continue with the discussion. So when you are enabling a language, it is also possible that you disable that language. Okay, one is you do not uh, publish the tasks in a given language. Okay, that is to make the tasks language specific. Or if you don't want a language which you have enabled to be available for conversation to the end users, you can disable the language from here. Okay, so nobody will be able to interact with the German version of this particular bot. Okay, so that is disabling the language as a whole. Now, before we continue with the BotKit and understand how we install BotKit and how we can control events from the BotKit, a small little configuration on the digital skills of the bot. One of the digital skills we have seen is a digital form. Okay, so we can design a form to accept inputs from the user. Typically, this is required when the bot requires a whole lot of information to continue with a particular task. It is not a good user experience if the bot keeps on asking questions one after the other. So in these situations, we can design a form and we can initiate that form from a dialog task. And within the form, the user can provide all the details. And then once the user clicks the submit button, the task can continue with processing those inputs which the user has provided within the form. So that is one of the ways of initiating a form, that is through a dialog task. But how do we initiate the dialog task? We initiate the dialog task by putting an utterance. So till now, what we have seen is all interactions between the bot and the user is text-based. Okay, so the user has to provide some input and that input should qualify the particular task, and then only the conversation is initiated. Okay. But if you would like to add some interactive components into your conversation window, which means that if the user clicks on a particular button, maybe a form is displayed to the user can provide his inputs within that particular form, click on the submit button, and this will internally trigger a dialog task which will process the contents of that particular form. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are not going in for the normal way of conversation with the bot, which is very much text driven. Okay, so the user has to provide an utterance which matches with the particular task. Okay, and the task qualifies, and that invokes the form and so on. What we are doing is we are adding some interactive components, some clickable components within the conversation window, clicking on which will display some information to the user. So those are known as digital views. These are interactive components that can be added into your bot, okay, into your bot conversation window. Okay, so how do we add digital views in our conversation window? Now, when we are adding digital views are a collection of panels and widgets. So widgets are the individual components, okay, which will be displayed within that particular panel. And within the panel, we are going to have icons on which the user can click and see the desired information. Okay, now for this purpose, I want to invoke the digital form that I have designed in my previous training session. I want to invoke this form from a digital view. Okay, now how do we do that? Now, first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dialog task, okay, through which I'm going to process the, the content of that particular form that will be added into the data table. So I'm just creating a new dialog task, or I can reuse the one that I have. So I have a task called submit details. Now, within this task, I first have a form node to invoke the form, and then a service node in order to process the details submitted through the form. Now I'm going to invoke this form from the digital view. Okay, but I need the service node to process the details which are submitted by the user using this particular form. So I'm going to keep this task. I'm just removing this form node from here. Okay, and I'm just connecting this to the service node. Okay, so a simple dialog task where there is only a service node, okay, which processes the contents of the form and adds it into a data table. But how do we invoke that form? Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm creating a digital view. Okay, so we click on, so a digital view has panel and widgets. So the method of setting up the digital view is first you create the widgets, okay? Then you create panels and add the widgets into the panel. So very similar to dashboards like you have seen yesterday. You create dashboard, then you create widgets to display different information. And these widgets are a part of a particular dashboard. So something similar to that, but those were analytics reports. These are information that will be fetched from dialog tasks and displayed to the user. Okay, so first I'm going to create a widget. Okay, so we give a name to the widget. Let's say, the display name of the widget name can be anything. It's an internal name, but what you put in the display name is displayed on the top of the widget to the user. Okay, widget data can be refreshed automatically. Okay, so it's not that if the widget is displaying some data, it is a static data, but it can be refreshed automatically, and you can set up the refresh timeline. Okay, so let's say I put it every 2 minutes, the widget data should be refreshed automatically. Now, what will be displayed within that particular widget? Okay, there are three sources of information in a widget. You can have a dialog task, a digital form displayed within a widget. You can have a static JSON displaying some output to the user within a widget, or you can have the response of execution of a dialog task to be displayed within a widget. Okay, let's start with a digital form. So I select digital form over here. So you have to select the form to be invoked, and you have to select the dialog task which should be invoked when the user clicks on the submit button. So the first thing I do is I select the form, okay, and then I click here and select the task that should be invoked when the user clicks on the submit button. Now I click on save to save the widget configuration. So I have a widget over here which is created. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a panel where I'm going to add this widget. Okay, so widgets are panels are containers of widget. And in the conversation window, you get to see the panel. Okay, when you click on the panel, all the widgets which are added into the panel, the data of those widgets are displayed to the user. Okay, so I'm going to create a panel. Let's put any name to the panel. Let's say something like this. The panel display name. Okay, what is actually displayed to the user. This is the internal name. So something like this. And you can add an icon. Now the icon has to be a new URL. Okay, so it cannot be a static file. So if you have some server where you have all the images and all, you can pick it up from there. I'm going to pick it up from the so I'm going to pick up one of the images from here. And I'm going to put it here. If you have your own, server where you have all the images, then you can put it from there also. Okay. So now you can see a panel has been created. The image has been added over here. You can see the description coming up. And now I'm going to add the widget that I have created into this panel. Okay. So I come to add widget. Okay. And select the widget that I have created. Okay. Now, once that is done, okay, now how do you see how it will look in the conversation window? So click on the test button over here. And if you have added a panel additionally on the left hand side, you get to see a particular, the panel coming up. along with your conversation window. So this is the conversation window where you can talk to the bot, or if you click on an image of a particular panel, so you can see the panel name coming up. So you can see over here, this thing is displayed, the form is displayed. So we are not initiating any conversation. We are not putting any utterance over here to display the form. Just by clicking on this panel image, I can see the form displayed to me. I can provide the input over here and click on the submit button. When I click on the submit button, internally the dialog task will be triggered, and through the dialog task, the data that I have provided within this form will be added into the data table. Okay, so this is a different way of interacting with the bot. Okay, one is I can type in my response, or I can type in over here, or the other way around is I have panels, and within the panels, I have widgets which are going to display information to them. Okay, is it clear to you all the purpose of creating digital views? Okay, let's create another widget. Okay, and this time I'm going to display a static JSON. Okay, let's see, expense details or something like that. Okay, and here I put it as a JSON. This will allow you to define a static JSON. Okay, so I have a JSON ready. I'm going to just pick it up from there and put it here. Okay, so this is just a template. Okay, these are templates which are supported on our platform. All the templates are available for the web channel, so you can use any one of those templates. The templates are available as a JavaScript. Within that JavaScript, you just need to put the information that you need to display through that template. Okay, I'll show you all how you can use the templates, but as of now, I'm using one of the templates, and the templates are all available in JavaScript. So within the template, I'm just providing the details to be displayed. Like, let's say the title is, let's say, expense summary. And this is, let's see, I put it as monthly expenses. Okay, and we save it. Now, once you do that, once again, you have to add that widget into the panel. Remember, if you don't add the widget into the panel, you do not get to see that widget coming up when you are talking to the bot. Okay, so once again, I'm clicking on the test button, which will show me the panel on the left-hand side. And when I click on the panel, you can see the second widget coming up over here, which shows me a static JSON, which is the expense details as I have provided within that JSON body. Okay, sorry, the JavaScript. The third is a dialog task. You can invoke a dialog task and display the response of that dialog task within a widget of a digital view. Okay, but that dialog task configuration has to be quite simple. Remember that. Okay, it cannot have those alternate conversation flows and all. So these are pretty simple dialog tasks where maybe you're making an API call to fetch some information from a backend server and just display that information, okay, to the user, something like that. Okay, here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new dialog task. So let's say and the first thing is I'm just going to create a similar dialog task like the check balance. So I just have the entity node. So I'm reusing the same things. Okay. And from the entity node, what I'm doing is, though this is not a good example because the dialog task which you are invoking from a digital view should not have dependence on the end users. Okay, so this entity value depends on the end users, because when you are configuring the digital view, the widget of the digital view, you have to provide some static value for this particular entity. Okay, so if it is a entity value that is fetched from the user whenever the user initiates the task, it is not a good candidate for a digital view, but just I want to show you all how you all can invoke a dialog task from the digital view. So that is why I'm using this particular task. Okay, and let's say I go in for a service call. And once the service call is done, okay, now what I do is I add the message node which we had, okay, so balance message. But here I'm going to make some changes. Okay, so this is the default message which is displaying the balance back to the user. But I want this response to be displayed within the widget of the digital view. Okay, now this general response will never be displayed within the widget of the digital view. Now, how do you do that? I click on manage responses, okay, and I add a bot response. Now the channel for which you need to define the response, which will be displayed within a widget of the digital view, is the widget SDK channel. Okay, select the widget SDK channel, and then the message has to be presented as a JavaScript. So you cannot have a plain text as a message response of a widget SDK channel. So change it to JavaScript. And once you change it to JavaScript, now you can create your response in the JavaScript format. So this is how I'm creating it. So you can see the balance in your account is followed by context dot the name of your service node, that is fetch balance dot response dot body dot balance, and then I'm creating the message that is to be displayed back to the user. Okay, so let's say account details or account balance, and the output, that is this particular message which contains the balance of the user, is displayed, and you can attach an icon if you want. But this message has to be provided, this JavaScript format of the message has to be provided in the for the widget SDK channel. There are some predefined templates also available. So when you change it to JavaScript, you can see the templates. The Py template was the one I was using. So if you select this template, let me just show you all how you all can use the templates. So when you come to a bot response, okay, let's say I select the widget SDK channel, I change the type of message to JavaScript, and here I select the Py template. So you will see the default, the code is given over here. Okay, all you need to do is to provide the details that you would like to display within that particular, using this particular template. Okay, so go through it. So these are the elements which will be displayed. You can change the title, you can change the value. This value can come from a dialog task, from a service call. Okay, so you can have a service call which is fetching some value from a backend service and use that to display to be displayed using the pie chart widget. Okay, so pie chart template. So these templates are available either for the widget SDK channel, or the templates are available for the web channel. Now for the web channel, you can within your conversation window, your normal conversation window, if you don't want text messages, simple text messages to come up, but you want some table to come up, or maybe some pie chart or carousel template like card output, card layout to come out. The choices should be presented to the user in the card layout and all. Then you can use the predefined templates which are available on our platform. So for that purpose, come to channels. When you're adding a new message from the channel, select the web channel, because all our templates are available only for the web channel. Okay, so come to web channel over here, change your message type to JavaScript. Immediately you can see all the templates available. These are the entire list of templates. When you select a particular template, it will show you the JavaScript of that template. All you need to do is provide the details that has to be displayed using this particular template. So if you want to display the choices to the user using buttons one beside the other for a list of items, maybe you want to display buttons one beside the other, Then you can go in for the quick replies template. Here, provide the choices to be displayed to the user and create your message. Payback, or sorry, the payload is what will be returned from this particular template. So if you are using this template to present choices for an entity node, if the user clicks on one of those buttons, something should be returned back because that value will be stored within the entity. Okay, so payload is what is returned back from that template so that it can be stored as a value of the entity where this template has been applied. Okay, so that is how you use the templates on our platform, but the templates are only available for the web channel. You can refer to our documentation on supported message templates, and you can see a list of all the templates which are available. It will also give you, sample codes where you can see how each of those codes, which will help you to display data in a given format to the user. But remember, whenever you are adding some channel specific responses, you should have at least one response which is general in nature. Okay, is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? Okay, now once we have done this, so this task I just created to show you all how you all can invoke a dialog task from the digital view. So I come here, I create a new widget. Let's say account balance or balance details, whatever you want to name it as, you can name it accordingly. Okay, and this time the source of this widget is a dialog task. Select the dialog task that you would like to invoke. So I'm selecting this task. Now, since this dialog task has an entity, okay, you have to provide the value of this entity. The widget will not prompt the user for the entity value. So that is why, dialog tasks which are expecting entity values from the end user, they are not good candidates to be invoked through a digital view. Okay, but still, just to show you all, I put an entity value over here and we click on save. Once we do that, I add this widget into my panel. Unless and until you add the widget into the panel, you do not get to see the output of that widget. Now, once we have done that, let's click on the test button. Okay, so my image is not coming. I could have put another URL over here, but you can see it has fetched the balance using that API call, and through the service node, it is displaying the balance back to the user within the widget of a digital view. Okay, so this is the purpose of a digital view. Is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? Okay. There's one additional thing that you need to do. If you have a digital view enabled for your bot, when you are deploying the bot to the end user, you need to enable the widget SDK channel. Okay, so right now we only have the web channel enabled, and the app should be the same for both the channels. So for the web channel, I have used the test app over here. So when I'm enabling the widget SDK channel, okay, so you can see the widget SDK channel over here. So we go to configurations. It is very similar, to the configuration of the web channel. So I just select the app here. It shows me the client ID and secret and everything. We save this. Okay, and once this is saved, now we deploy the bot to the end user. Now, this is the first step for deployment, that is we publish it. The next thing that we need to do is, before we talk to the bot from the, directly from the browser, is that when you go to the web SDK, that is the the files that you have downloaded from the GitHub. Okay, so within the SDK app, when you come to SDK followed by UI, there will be a particular file that is core widgetsconfig.js. Okay, it is very similar to core config.js, where you provide the details of your web channel. Similar to that, we are coming to core widgetsconfig.js file. Open this particular file. And provide the details of the widget SDK channel. Okay, so what you do is come back to the widget SDK channel. You will get to see your, client ID, client secret, bot ID, and bot name. So you need to provide those details here also. So you can see it is asking you for the name of the bot, the ID of the bot, the client ID, and the client secret. Okay, so just copy the required details from here and put it over here. Okay, so I'm just copying it from here and putting it over here. Now, once this is done, okay, once you have provided the bot details over here for the widget SDK channel, the next step is just save it. Okay, and the next step is to start your Node.js. So for that purpose, I'm going to start the Node.js over here. Okay, and once we have started Node.js, now let's see whether we can connect to the bot or not. And we want to display the panel along with the conversation window. So when you are starting it, this is how you do it. If you have a panel, you should have index widget chat.html. That is the page you should be opening. And on the left side, you can see the panel coming up now. If you click on the panel, it should show all the widgets that you have configured within your panel. Okay, so you can have multiple panels like this on the left hand side. Each panel can have a collection of different types of widgets. And the purpose is we are not talking to the bot. Okay, so we are just clicking a button and we are getting the desired information. So now I can talk to the bot also from here. I can type and talk to the bot in the conversation window, or I can click on this panel and see some information which are associated with that particular panel. Okay, is it clear to you all? The purpose of widgets, that is digital views and the entire process of doing it. Any questions on this? Speech recognition, yes, you can do it. One is IVR channel. Okay, you can enable the IVR channel. Okay, or within the normal conversation window, if you want to enable speech recognition, okay, then in the core config.js file, you have this text to speech enabled, which is by default disabled. So you have to enable this. Okay, so these are the places where you can enable certain additional things, that is auto enable speech and text to speech, which is again false. So if your conversation from wherever you are conversing, it allows you to provide speech as input, and that should be converted into text, then you can enable it from here. The other way is you enable the IVR channel, and that requires a separate set of integration or configuration to enable the channel. You need a service provider which will provide you with the IVR capabilities, and you do that entire configuration on the bot end and deploy the bot on the IVR channel. So there the user can call and talk to the bot. That is basically calling and talking to the bot. But in the conversation window, if you want to enable text to speech, you can do it from this particular file, that is core config.js file, where you can enable it. Okay, is that clear to you? Okay, now the next thing which we will see today is the bot kit. Okay, and why do we need the bot kit? Okay, now many a time you need to integrate your bot with an external system. maybe with your RPA system, you need to integrate your bot, or there is a agent transfer software, okay, where live agents can connect to the end user through the bot. Okay, so there you need to integrate your bot with the live agent services, or there might be enterprises who would not like to use our NLP engine. They want to do the task configurations within our platform. They want the task, the task to be executed within our platform. That NLP training that we provide, they want to use some external NLP engine for that. So there are multiple external NLP engines available, like Louis.ai or API.ai. These are available. So they want to integrate an external NLP engine with our platform, with the bot that we have built, so that when an utterance comes from the user, it should be first sent to that particular NLP engine. That engine will do the intent identification, and the identified intent should be sent to our bot, where the task will be executed from within our platform. Okay, so many different types of requirements like this is there, where you need to integrate your bot with certain external applications. Okay, now how do you do it? For this purpose, we have an additional SDK from where you do this external integrations, and that is known as the bot kit. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is to download the bot kit from the GitHub. The platform also has a link to the GitHub. So when you come to deploy over here and you come to integrations, you have the bot kit here. Click on the bot kit and you get the link to GitHub from where you can download the SDK. When you download the bot kit SDK into your server, this is the content of the bot kit. So you can see here, I have the bot kit master. This is the zip folder that will get downloaded into your local system from the GitHub. And once you extract the content of this, you will get all the configuration files over here, which is required for this particular integration. Okay, so that is the first step. If you want to integrate your bot with external applications, then the first thing is to download BotKit. Now, one thing, please remember, this is not an essential configuration, but many a time these advanced configurations are required when you are working on the bot. So you should know what is a BotKit. Okay, you will learn more when you are actually doing the hands-on, but yes, you should know what is a BotKit and how you should download it. Okay, so download it from the GitHub SDK, extract the content of that folder. You will get all the required files within that folder. What is the next step? BotKit requires a callback server, and here ngrok works as the callback server. So install ngrok within the server where you are doing this integration. And before you come and enable BotKit over here, what you need to do is to start the ngrok server. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my ngrok server. The link to download ngrok is available within our documentation, the page on BotKit. I'm going to share that link with you all. So you will get the link to download ngrok into your local server from that particular page. Okay, but ngrok is a callback server, so you need to download ngrok and start the ngrok server before you start off with this integration or with this configuration. So it gives you the callback URL, which we will use within our bot. So the forwarding URL that you are getting to see over here, copy that URL. Okay, so I copy this URL. And now what we do is we enable the BotKit. Now the same way for the BotKit also, you need to create an app. Okay, so let's create an app because we will need the client ID and secret. So give a name to your bot, any name you can provide over here. So you can see the bot, the app has been created. Along with that, you can see the client ID and secret generated. And here you need to provide the callback URL, which is the forwarding HTTPS URL that we have copied. So just put it over here And on the bot-kit, we monitor events. Okay, so whenever a message comes from the user or a bot response goes to the user, since the bot-kit sits in between the user and the bot, once enabled, the event on the bot-kit layer is the on message event. Okay. Similarly, if a webhook is encountered, then the event on the bot-kit layer is the hook node event. If on the completion of a dialog task or an FAQ on the bot-kit, the event that is triggered is known as on event. Okay. Similarly, if the bot receives a message through an alert, then the event is on alert. And whenever the task is published, that is the configuration of the bot is published on the bot-kit level, the event that is triggered is on variable update. Now, depending on what you want to do in the bot-kit, you can enable these events. Now, I'm going to demonstrate the use of bot-kits by intercepting the messages that are exchanged between the bot and the user in the bot-kit layer. So I'm enabling the on message event over here. And we click on save. So you can see the bot-kit has been enabled successfully for the bot. Okay. Now, once the bot-kit is enabled, we need to do some more configurations, or we need to do some configurations in some of the files which are available within the bot-kit master. So the three files where we need to do the configurations is app.js. So I open this particular file, app.js. The other file is the config.json file. Okay, so this file will be there, config.json file. So open that file also, because we will need to provide the details of the bot where bot-kit has been enabled within this particular file. So open this file. And since I will be working with the messages that are exchanged between the bot and the user, there is a file called simple conversation bot.js file. So you have a lot of examples over here. These .js files are different types of use cases. So you can open these files, look into the JavaScript provided over there. These are sample codes which will allow you these kind of integrations. So look into these files and see what are the use cases which are handled through these different files. I'll show you all some more files, but right now I'm opening the simple conversation bot.js file. Now, once you are in this particular file, okay, once you are in this particular file, so you can see over here, you need to put the ID of the bot and the name of the bot. Okay, so copy the bot ID and the bot name from here. Okay, so and next is the name of the bot. So these are very case sensitive. So always make sure that you copy it and paste it over here. Now within this file, you can see the different events. Okay, so on user message, this event will always be triggered when a message is received from the user. Okay, when an utterance is received from the user. Similarly, you get to see another this thing over here, event over here, that is on bot message. That is whenever a response is received from the bot, which has to be displayed to the user on the bot-kit, the event that is triggered is on bot message. Now, if you want to do something in these events, you can do the configuration over here. Now, let's say we have seen while we are talking to the bot comes back with a welcome message. The welcome message says something like this: hello, I am your banking assistant. What can I do for you? The expected response of the user is the user will provide an utterance which qualifies the task. Okay, so the different tasks which are there, like open account or check balance or make payment or get details or submit details or apply card, there are so many tasks. Okay, so the user can provide an utterance which will qualify one of those tasks, or the user can provide an a small talk, or the user can provide an utterance which qualifies an FAQ from the KG section. So these are the expected inputs that can come from the user. But let's say the user says nothing. Okay, so when the bot is saying, what can I do for you? The user comes back with nothing. Now the NLP is not trained to handle this utterance of nothing. So what happens when NLP does not know what to do with an utterance? Intent identification fails. We have seen that, okay? Intent identification fails where the bot says, sorry, I cannot understand. And it lists out all the tasks that it can perform, okay? But let's say I want to handle this, okay? So if the user says nothing, then the bot should respond back with something like, sorry, I couldn't do anything for you. Let me know when you have some banking related tasks for me. Okay, something like that. So if I don't have the bot kit, in that case, how do we handle this? We need to create a task where we should have a message node displaying this message. We train the ML engine with an utterance like nothing to qualify that task. And when the user responds back with a nothing, that task gets qualified, and through the task, a message is displayed to the user. So just for displaying a single message, what I'm doing is I'm creating a task, I'm training NLP, and then qualifying that task to display the message. But if I have the bot kit installed within my server, I don't need to make changes in my bot configurations. So in the event on user message, here I'm checking if the response or the utterance of the user is equal to nothing, then what is the response I want to display to the user? Something like, sorry, something like this, okay? And what I do is I send this message back to the user. So once again, we have a particular function over here, send user message. Okay, this message that I've stored within this particular JSON component, that is data, I push that back to the end user. So what is happening here is that since I have not trained the NLP engine to handle a particular utterance coming from the user, I'm not sending that utterance to the bot. At the bot kit level itself, I'm checking that if the utterance of the user is equal to nothing, then what I'm doing is I'm framing up the response of the bot here itself and sending the response back to the user. Okay, so we are intercepting the message of the user at the bot kit level and sending the response back to the user from the bot kit itself. We are not bothering the NLP of the bot because the NLP of the bot has not been trained to handle this particular utterance coming from the user. Okay, let's save this. Okay, and let's open the other two files where we need to provide the bot details. That is the config.json file. Here we need to provide the client ID and the secret and the ngrok forwarding URL. Okay, all of these details are available over here. So copy this callback URL and put it here where it is asking for the URL of the ngrok server. Okay, similarly, copy the client ID, okay, and put it where it is asking for app ID. App ID is the client ID, remember that, okay. And similarly, copy the client secret, okay, and put it where it is asking for the API key. Okay, so once you provide these details, save it. Okay, now this file is complete. We have a third file, which is the app.js. Here you don't need to do anything by default because all your JS files, the configuration files are included. But if you have created your own JS file for any kind of integration, make sure you include that file within the app.js file. Okay, now once you have done all of these things, now what we are going to do is we are going to start off with our Node.js. Okay, so now what I do is I come here and I start my Node.js. So node app.js, we start this. Okay, so you can see it is waiting. It is waiting for the user to talk to the bot. Okay, and once you see this message coming up, now what we do is we start talking to the bot. So you can see the welcome message coming up, and here I put nothing. That is my response. Okay. So it should come back with the response. So you can see, sorry, I could not perform a task for you. Let me know if you have some banking related work. But you can see at the bottom, the NLP has not received any utterance from the user. So which implies that we have not reached till the bot. We have intercepted this particular user response at the botkit level. And since the NLP of the bot is not trained to handle this response, we have set up a response over there and pushed it back to the user, which is getting displayed within the conversation book. Okay, so this is one of the uses of the botkit. Okay, similarly, let's say today the response of this should not be a static message, but maybe we would like to initiate the raise issue task. Okay, so instead of displaying a static message like this, what I would do over here is I say raise issue. That is the name of the task. Make sure you're using the correct name of the task. So this is the name of the task, okay? And once I have provided, because we know that if we provide the name of the task, the NLP engine can qualify the task. So if the user says nothing, that means maybe the user is not happy with the tasks, or he doesn't get the task that he wants to perform. So it is always good to ask the user what is his, why he doesn't want to do anything. Okay, so the raise issue task allows the user to describe the issue that he is facing. So I just wrote the message that is the name of the task. And this time, instead of sending the response back to the user, I send this response to the bot. Okay, so this modified response. Okay, so right now the message or the utterance that will be received by the bot is the raise issue. Though the user had provided the response as nothing, we have changed that to raise issue. And now using the function send bot message, I'm sending this message, this modified message to the bot. Okay, now once we make this change, let's save this. And whenever there is a change, make sure that you restart your Node.js, because otherwise the changes will not be registered. So make sure you restart your Node.js after that. And once you have restarted your Node.js, now let's talk to the bot and see what is happening. Okay, so, okay, there is a change in the language. So I just say yes. Okay, and one second. Okay, so you can see the raise issue task has been qualified. Okay, when the user said nothing, the bot had presented all the possible responses, the tasks to the user, and the user responded back with a nothing. Now the bot doesn't know, the bot NLP has not been trained to handle nothing. Neither we have trained the raise issue task with an utterance like nothing should go and qualify this task. But how is this task getting qualified? Because from the botkit level, we have checked that if the response of the user is nothing, then the utterance, modified utterance that should be sent to the bot is the name of the task, that is raise issue. And when that is received by the NLP engine, it is the name of this particular task. So the task is initiated by the NLP engine. Okay, so for all of these things that is taking place, we are not changing the NLP of the bot, but since we have the bot kit installed, we are making changes at the bot kit level. Okay, so the bot kit sits between the user and the bot, and you can do a lot of configurations from here if you have the bot kit. So if you have done certain level of NLP training and what you are expecting from the user does not match with the training that you have provided, then you can utilize these functions which are defined within a particular configuration file of the bot kit to change it to something relevant that the user understands. Okay, is it clear to you all? Any questions on this? Similarly, you can change your bot responses. So whenever a response is received from the bot at the bot kit level, you have the on bot message. There you can check what is the response of the bot. And then if you want to change it to something else, change it over here and send the response back to the user. Okay, so all of these things you are doing it at the bot kit level. There are other files which are available, so you can look into the configurations of those files. Like you can see over here, example with external NLP engine. Okay, so if you look into the codings over here, the JavaScript coding, you will see these are the codes which will allow you to integrate your bot with external NLP engines. So you can see this is one of the NLP engine. You have to provide the server address where that NLP engine is available, and the authorization, that is your bearer token and all. And then it is going to, whenever a response is, that is a message is received from the user, it will be sent to this NLP engine, and the response of this NLP engine will be sent to a bot. Okay, similarly, you can see Louis.ai, that is another NLP engine. So you can see all those, the default codes are already given over here, but you need to provide the details of the bot with which you are doing this integration within the respective file, and then see the integration working with the bot kit enabled within your server. Okay, so this is an additional thing, SDK, that we have, which allows developers to integrate the bot with external applications. Okay, so you can, if you are interested in this, you can check the different files which are there. These are all different types of examples of implementation. So check all the different JavaScript files and see how the integrations are done. But the common one is, if you are intercepting the bot messages and the user responses, you can go in for simple conversation bot.js file. Is it clear to you all? Any questions still here? And the final thing that we will look, so this is all that we have on our development part. Okay, any questions on anything that we have discussed till now? The final thing that we will look into is the admin portal. So not all developers are admins. Right now, since you all have created your own accounts, you all will have access to your admin portals. But in your actual enterprises end, you will see there are certain people who have the admin access. And they are the people who are responsible for user management, for role management, for security management, and so on. And for them, we have a separate user interface, which is referred to as the admin console. So we can go to the admin console from our profile button over here. Click on go to admin console, which will allow you, which will ask you to log in. Your if you have the access, it is the same login as your developer portal. So once you log into the admin portal, what you get to see is the dashboard coming up. This is very similar to the user usage dashboard that we get to see on our platform, which will show you the real-time status of all the bots which are deployed from this particular account. So right now you can see there are 3 active bots which are deployed. Okay, if you click here, so the channels on which these have been deployed. So there are 3 channels, that is the webhook channel is there, the web channel is there. Okay, this is the process channel actually. If there are some active agent transfer sessions taking place, you can see the number of sessions over here. Then comes the status of all the bots, the conversations that has taken place between the users and the bots in the last 24 hours or last 7 days for all the bots which are deployed from this particular account. If you want to see the report for a specific bot, you can select the bot and the report will be generated only for that particular bot. Okay, so there were total 6 tasks that were completed and 2 users, and the number of alerts were 7. You can see the number of messages and conversation sessions that has taken place between the bot and the users on a given date. The billing session, now billing sessions are for enterprises. Okay, so we have e-commerce bots, and enterprises can also create e-commerce bots. It means that end users are charged by the enterprise for using that bot to perform the tasks. Okay, so those kind of bots are known as e-commerce bots. Now, how are they charged? Each billing session is 15 minutes of continuous interaction between the bot and the user. Okay, so while you are talking to the bot, if you're talking to the bot for continuously for 45 minutes, you will be charged for 3 billing sessions. Okay, now these billing sessions, the charges, these has to be provided internally when the platform is implemented or set up at your end. But you can see the number of billing sessions over here, date-wise. Okay, so there were 3 sessions on a given date. Okay, so you can see the total number of billing sessions that has taken place between the user and the bots over here. Then comes the total number of successful tasks. So 4 successful tasks were executed by the end users on 11th October, and on 12th October, 2 tasks were executed by the users. Then the total number of active users given on a date, what are the tasks the users are requesting for, and the number of times the users are requesting for those tasks, and total number of messages that are exchanged between the bot and the user is displayed over here. The number of users, the IDs of the users, you get to see the names of the users if they are enterprise users, and the messages exchanged between the bot and the particular user coming up here, and the total number of billing sessions displayed. Okay, so this is the dashboard report that you get to see when you come to the admin console as the admin of the platform. The next option over here is the enrollment option, from where admins can invite developers to start using the bot builder. So today, right at the starting in the basic training session, I said that you all should have access to the bot builder. So what did you all do? You all went to Core Bot Builder. It asked you for your email ID. You provided your email ID. It asked you to sign up. You provided your first name, last name, email ID, and a password, and you clicked on sign up. Now that request actually came to the admin of the platform, and it was the admin of the platform who approved your request. Okay, so the admin of the platform himself can also invite developers to the account to start using the bot builder, and he can do it by clicking on the invite button and providing the email addresses of the developers whom he would like to invite to start using the bot builder. So this will trigger an email to the concerned developers with a link to access the bot builder. So when they click on that link, once again, the same process is triggered. They need to sign up. And once they sign up, then they will get access to the bot builder. So at a time, the admin can send out invites to 5 users, 5 prospective users of the bot builder. They can also go in for bulk invite, where they have a CSV file created with all the email addresses of the developers who are to be initiated into the bot builder. They can upload the file over here and click on send invitation. So that will trigger a mail to all the email addresses which are provided within that particular file, and they can sign up to start using the bot builder. You can see the structure of the file over here. So you can see it is a TXT file and it should have one email per line. Okay, so you can create a file and save it in the TXT format. Import, of course, whenever an user is providing all his details, that creates his profile, okay, with his first name, last name, email ID, his password, and so on. But if the admin wants to create the profile himself and send out the invite to the developer, then he can go in for the import method. Now, this import file will have more information where not only the email ID, but the first name, last name, the alternate email ID, the work phone, the other, the profile details are over here. If it is a new user, the status is new. If some information is to be updated for a particular user, then it is update. And if an user needs to be removed from the bot builder, it is delete. Now, a file can be created in this format and it can be uploaded within a system from here. And then the admin can click on send invites. Okay, so once it is uploaded, the invite button will come up and these users will be invited to start using the bot builder. So these are different ways in which the admin can enroll new users to the bot builder. We can also set up Active Directory sync from here, okay, if required. All the enrollment requests, okay, so when you are yourself sending out the request to start using the bot builder, these enrollment requests are displayed to the admin over here, and the admin can either approve the request or can reject the request. Only when the admin approves the request, the concerned developer's account is created and he can start using the bot builder in order to create his virtual assistants. Okay, and then you have preferences over here where whether self sign-in for the users is allowed or not. Okay, so we have self sign-in allowed. That is why you were able to sign up for the bot builder yourself. If we say do not allow, that means only the admin can send out the request to initiate new users into the bot builder. And when a joining request comes, should the request be auto approved by the admin of the platform, which you all have seen, that is the moment you send a request, you sign up for the bot builder, you get the approval and you can start using the bot builder. That is because auto approval is enabled. But if it is disabled, then the admin of the platform will check that particular request and then he can either manually approve or reject the request. And once a new user is given access to the bot builder, what are the default permissions? That is access to bot builder, create new bots, and work with data tables. Okay, and how email notifications can be sent to those users by the admin of the platform. So that comes under the preference of the enrollment module. Any questions on this? The next is the user management. So here the admin can see all the users available in this particular account of the bot builder. If he wants to see the details of a particular user, he can click on that user, and then he can see the profile details of the user. He can see the sessions the user has had with the different bots on this particular platform. What are the bots the particular user has used? If there are process apps or something different new with 9.0. So if he has used some process apps, what are the process apps that he or she has used? Okay. User settings will show what are the profile details that will be stored for each of the users. It can be enabled or disabled from here. Groups. The admins can create groups of developers. Okay, so when they create a new group, they can add existing users into a particular group. Okay, so you come to members, you get to see all the users over here. They can be added into a group. You have to give a name to this group. And the advantage is when the owner of the bot is sharing the bot with other developers, They can either share the bot with individual developers or they can share it with a group of developers. Okay, so this group has to be created by the admin, and then the owners of the bot can use these groups when they are sharing the bot with co-developers. Okay, is it clear to you all the purpose of creating groups? Okay. And role management is when a bot is shared. Remember, I had said that these are the default roles which are available. Additional roles can be created by the admin of the platform. So that comes from role management. Okay, so when they come to role management, these are the rules which are available out of the box. So you can see the developer rule. If you click on this, you can see all the permissions which are given to a developer. So when a bot is shared with the developer rule, the co-developer gets all these kind of access on the configuration of the bot. Full access means he can do anything with the configuration. View means he can only see the configuration. No means he cannot see the configuration. So for each of the properties, for each of the features like knowledge graph, custom dashboard, batch testing, bot developer, NLP training. Okay, so for tasks like dialog task creations and all, you can see the different types of access roles are defined over here, which can be associated with a role that is being created. As an admin, the admin can create a new role over here. If it is a role related to the bot builder, then it is a bot role. And then he can define the access permissions as required. And once the admin defines this role, the owners of the bot can use the role when we are sharing the bot with their co-developers. Okay, is it clear to you all role management? Any questions on this? Then we have bot management, where whenever we publish a bot, the request comes to the admin of the platform. Now, many of you had faced this challenge in the basic training session. I had received a lot of questions that I'm trying to publish the bot. It is showing me awaiting approval. Okay, that is because the request went to the admin of the platform. Now you are only the admin, okay, because you're working with your own account, so you are the admin over there, and it is manual approval that is on. So in that case, you have to come to bot management. You have to come to deployment request under bot management, and you will get to see the deployment request over here. As the admin of the platform, either you can approve it or you can reject it. Okay, so if you approve the publish request, then the bot gets published, and if you reject it, the bot cannot be published in future. Okay, you can see the list of all enterprise bots which are created within your platform, or all the consumer bots which are created within the platform. Now, if a bot is created as an enterprise bot, I was telling this yesterday, it has a select group of end users. Okay, so anybody cannot connect to an enterprise bot. An enterprise bot, after it is published, has to be assigned to the end user by the admin of the platform. So as an admin of the platform, once you approve the deployment request, come to enterprise bot. It will show you the list of enterprise bots over here. For a given bot, come to bot and task assignment and assign the bot to the end users. Okay, so this is an additional step which has to be done for enterprise bots, and unless and until this assignment is done, the end user cannot start talking to the bot. Okay, and finally you have preferences over here, which will show you how the deployment requests are actually processed. That is automatically approve all requests. So that is why whenever I publish, immediately all my tasks are published, and I get a mail coming back to me that the bot deployment has a publish request has been processed successfully. Okay, but this is the default setting, actually, the manual approval, where you will get to see approval awaiting as the status of the task, and only when the admin of the platform accepts that particular approval and that deployment request, then only the status of the tasks will be changing to published. Okay, so that is your deployment request preference, which can be set up from here. Any questions on bot management? Then we come to security and control, from where we can configure single sign-on for the platform. Core AI connector is required if you are connecting while working with the bot configurations. You have service calls which are connecting to data services which are behind the firewall of a particular enterprise. So the bot cannot directly connect to a service which is behind the firewall. So in that case, the admin of the platform needs to install the core AI connector within the firewall of that particular enterprise. The steps are given over here. The connector has to be downloaded and then it has to be installed following these steps. And once the connector is installed, then when we are doing the service node configurations, there we need to select this connector before we can trigger the API call. So when you come to the service node configurations here, you will see for every service node, you will get to select the connector. So if a connector is installed like that within the firewall, so when you come to the configuration of the service call, if you come to advanced settings here, all public URL, all URLs are in the public domain. That is the default. But if it is behind the firewall, then select this on so that the connector is used in order to connect to that particular service. Okay, so you can see a connector has been set up. So that is the task of the admin of the platform. You don't need to do it as a developer to set up the connector. Enterprise key is used for encryption purpose. So this can be refreshed for the purpose of security. API scopes, similar to what we discussed yesterday, API scopes can be enabled for functions that we can do from the admin platform as well. The steps are the same. That is, you go here, you create an app, you select the APIs that you want to enable and you save it. And then these APIs can be used from an external environment. And finally, the settings over here, the data retention period, for how long the conversations will be stored within our internal databases to generate the conversation history. Okay, by default, it is 7 years that we store all the conversations that are taking place between the bot and the user. But if you see that is too much, 7 years for every conversation, then you can change it as per your requirement. Okay, so going for custom data retention. The next is context persistence. This is required if your bot is handling very sensitive data. So if you're creating a bot, for let's say for your defense department, or if it is a bot which is capturing some information that should not be available within the conversation history, like maybe the email address, the credit card number, or the social security number, or the bank account number, things like that, then you can say do not store end user conversation context information. So when the conversation history is stored, all the flows will be stored except the entity values that are captured. So since those entity values are very sensitive in nature, we do not store the entity values within the conversation history. So to do that, you need to enable this over here from the settings under security and control. And if you want to whitelist some IP addresses from where the bot builder should be accessible, then click on restrict and provide the IP addresses over here from where you want the bot builder to be accessible. Any IP address which is not mentioned over here will not be allowed to access the bot builder. Okay, so all of these are available under the security and controls, and within that settings. Any questions on this? Okay. And finally, we have the analytics, where the audit report will show you all the changes that was done on the admin platform by the admin. Okay, so you can see what are the different things that I have done over here. And bot chat history will show the admin the chat history. Okay, so clicking on any one of it will show the entire conversation that has taken place between the bot and the user on this particular channel on this date and time. The admin of the platform can either export this in the CSV format or in the PDF format. Okay, so you can save it as a PDF or as a CSV. So that is from the chat history under analytics. So these are the different things that we can do from the admin console as the administrator of the bot platform. Any questions on this? Okay, so that is all that we have in the advanced training session. Any questions on anything that we have discussed in these 2 days? Okay, so I'll be sharing the recording and the assignment, the post-training assignment with you all tomorrow morning. And remember, you don't need to create a bot all over again to do the advanced configuration. All you need to do is perform these configurations on the bot that you have built for your basic training session. And once you complete the advanced configurations, export the bot once again and share with me the export through email. We will evaluate and we will certify that you have completed your advanced training session as well. And while you're doing the configurations, if something is not working, let me know on mail and I'll try to guide you on the mail itself. Okay. So if you all don't have any questions, we will stop the session over here today. Okay, so thanks all of y'all for joining the session. And if you all have any questions,